Hi and welcome back to another video of JPlay. I am Marcus and today I'm walking you through a couple of rounds of East India Companies, which is in Germany published by Huch Games. I think internationally it's R&R Games. Huch Games kindly provided me a review copy of this box. I also did a component run through shorts the other day, just to play around a little bit with the shorts functionality on YouTube basically. That's all what it was. East India Companies is a game which I originally busted out and I brought it to game night. We played a full 4-player game and it was okay, but it wasn't great. I guess it's really more in respect to how you play the game, who you are playing the game with, because ultimately it's not just buying stuff, selling stuff. Let's say the thrill of this game is around the stock exchange track here. Because it's a game about liquidity and you really shouldn't be attached to your stock. Yes, you own your company, so you always hold your 2 presidency shares. You can never lose these shares and you can also never go bankrupt. So it's not really, when you now think about this, hey, wow, has this some 18xx vibes? I think not so much. On the other hand, driving the value down of the companies, or trying to drive the value down of the companies where your opponents has the most amount of stocks, and this can be crucial winning the game. In the end, money is victory points, and at the end of the game you're also selling all the stock for the respective stock value here. And I played it several times after my initial take, on my initial session, and very much enjoyed it then. I can see that it's not everyone's game, and I think this was maybe one of the problems with the very first game. Not really saying I'm never playing games with the wrong players, of course, they were great. I really enjoy their company very much, but it wasn't necessarily their game, not for every one of those. And I think in this case, that was the main reason why it a little bit fell short. Obviously, the theme can be, let's say, a little bit problematic. There is a section in the rules which speaks about this a little bit. Not sure if that will satisfy everyone's, let's say, desire to really treat these times as they should be treated. I mean, there are a lot of war games out there. There are a lot of other games with problematic settings. Some of those do deal with the setting better than others. So let's take John Company. I think a lot of effort went into the history of a relatively dark time and so on. Not so much in this game, but again, so take everything I show you today with a pinch of salt. It's really about the gameplay. It's not about history lesson. I would suck at this anyway. Today I will walk you through a couple of rounds of a 3-player game. There is a 2-player mode where there is some level of a bot player, because again, this game really shines, the more the merrier. I think it's totally fine with 3 players and 4 players. I think this is not really a difference. It didn't feel like a difference to me. But I have never played it at 2 players, so I cannot really give you any insight into the 2-player mode. But unfortunately, not a solo mode. But I think in this case, not really sure if that would make sense anyway. So, in East India Companies, we are trying to amass the most amount of money after 5 periods. Each period is played over, I think, 5 different rounds, turns, whatever phases, however you want to put that. So whatever you earn throughout the game will be a victory point, and everything that you will sell stock-wise at the end of the game will also be transformed into victory points. I already set up the game for a 3-player game. I think there are 1 or 2 things I did forget. No, I covered up this one down here. So there's basically, in a 4-player game, the company that did perform the worst will lose some stock value. In a 3-player game, that's not going to happen. And yeah, exactly, I have to cover up some more ports here basically on the map. I think one goes here, so basically bringing down the total amount of, I think it's ports, right? I think Bombay is also not part of a 3-player game. Apart from that, there is no really big difference between the 3 and a 4-player game. I think we are removing 1 stock each. I think there should be only 6 now. Yes, this seems to be right. And now again, we should be ready to go. I randomized the turn order, and this only basically reflects later on in the starting money. Starting player starts with 10 money, then 11, then 12. Having some money is definitely a good thing, especially early game. Money can be incredibly tight. And then I think we can dive into the very first round of the game. As usual, I will explain you all the rules as I go. I will not give you a full rules teach up front. So the very first thing that you always do is to roll some dice. And this is on the left hand side, we have the Europe market. This is for your demand. So this is how much you can sell for which amount of for which price, which is really a very cool mechanic. I like this one a lot. So this doesn't look good. So there is a low demand for nearly everyone. I think this T1 can go up to 5. This is at least up to 3 or so. So this was a very, very poor roll. But for the folks who are following my channel for some time, yeah, you know how good or bad I'm rolling those dice. Let's do the same for the East Indies. Here it's not demand, here it's the production. And this is also not great. Again, this die can also go up to 5 and we rolled a 1. At least for spices we see some action, and coffee is also not entirely bad. There will be potentially more production and or demand. This is where these cards will come into the picture, but this is something that will happen a little bit later, and there are ways to influence this. Also something which I very much enjoy about this game. So you don't have to go through the production or the buy and selling phase completely blind, if you don't want to at least. And again, that's the very first thing that we are doing. Then we are officially starting our agent phase. Again, blue is the starting player and will start placing their very first agent. So we have these, let's say, 5 rolls here on, let's say, the action board here in this case. Each one of those comes at least with 2 different actions. The trader has 3 actions. It's basically 1 actions for different goods. And yeah, we have the investor where you can buy a ship, where you can deal with the production with the demand deck. That's something the first player to go there can influence the demand. Early game, maybe not so important. Here the ship owner gives you 1 also ship, and you can also extend your port. Several players can go to the same action, but for every player that's in front of you, you have to pay them 1 coin each. And there are really some actions which are only taking 2 times in the game, like this one here. There are only 2 port extensions for that, and getting this early on and for free might not be the worst thing to consider. So I think in this case, blue will place their first agent in here. As this action doesn't show you a letter, it means it's being triggered immediately. All those letters refer to the later phases of this current round. This doesn't have a letter, so in this case we are triggering this for free because there is no other player. It doesn't come with a cost, and the port also doesn't really cost us anything. There are 2 types of ports. There is a 2 storage port and 1 storage port. The first one is always the 2. In this case, so the maximum of storage that you can build throughout the game is 3, because again, you can go there twice basically. So there will always be enough port tiles for each of the players. So let's take this and place it here accordingly. Table space might become a problem, at least down here. It's not really a table hog, but yeah, it's really for a 3-player game. It's not getting very much longer, and again, I'm not doing a full playthrough of this game because I think it doesn't really make sense. So not only do we now have 2 spaces where we can store stuff later on, which can be very, very crucial. No, we also got an extra port, which allows us to buy us another ship. Maybe this round, maybe next round. The sooner the better, in most cases at least. But that's already the first action or first agent placement of the blue player. Next is red, who already has some information in respect to this one here, to the production, to the East Indies. We see that East Indies are at least producing 4 more cubes, which would translate into a buying price of 2 for these 2. The next 2 would be 3, and so on. So knowing that could be crucial. Again, there could be an extra card in here which would even add 2 more of that, which would drive the price further down. The thing is, the buying price is quite okay, I guess. The selling price, not so much, because there's currently 0 demand for spices. Yes, there could be some from here, but right now they would sell only 2 for 4, and any excess they could still sell for 1 each, which would definitely be not great. So going for spices early on may not be the best thing in the world. We see that 2 tea is basically being removed again, plus the card. So that's a tough one. That's a tough call. So really having some storage facilities might not be the worst thing to have. On the other hand, I guess it's still worth it to build a trading post. Again, this is an action. Again, several players can go there, but for every player that's here before you, you will have to pay them. And especially early game, this can be very, very punching. We are starting the game with $1 extra because we are second, so I think it might be worth it going there. Yes. So we are placing one of our agents there. This is an action that also will be triggered immediately, doesn't have a letter. And this is what comes with a price. So we have to pay 3 coin. So we are getting 2 back. And of course, obviously, you have to play this game with poker chips, which I want to show you all the components of this game. So we are allowed to build this trading post. The question now really is, where do we want to build this? We have 3 regions. We have region 1, which is China. Then we have region 2, which is, I think, yeah, Indonesia. And then we have India here in region 3. Not all regions produce the same resources. So for example, China is producing silk and tea. Indonesia is producing tea and coffee. Coffee clear, tea, not so sure about this. And India is producing tea and spices. And again, looking at the spices thing, it might still be worth it. So I guess we are building it here. And it doesn't matter if we are building it into Calcutta or Pondicherry. It's basically one trade post. Each player can only have one trade post in each of the zones, and those trade posts are also highly limited. So there's one more space here in the trading zone 3 in India. So the next player to go there will basically lock it down. In a 4-player game, again, we have one more space available here. But again, that's the action for the red player, or the first action of the red player. So it seems, yeah, yellow already has to live with a consolation prize. They are last. The question is, do we want to remain last? We can change this by going to the captain. It will not trigger before basically the next phase. So the placement will continue in this order. Then as of the next phase, yellow would be first if we are going there. This comes with a price. This is basically dollars equal to the turn you're in. So right now we are in turn 1 or round 1, which would cost us $1, which is okay. This one down here would prohibit, or would give you, or you don't have to spend any travel costs when you go to China or to Indonesia, for example. This could be really, really huge if we are considering to travel to China. And right now, it might be actually worth it. So maybe we do that. That's okay. I think we want to do that. Yeah, we are placing it here. It's pretty much an investment into the future, so it will not trigger right away. It doesn't come with any cost, so that's at least a good thing. Okay, then we are moving back to Blue, and they will totally go for another ship. We can buy a ship here or there. There is a reason to spread your agents out a little bit, because these folks at the end of the round will remain here. They will simply move up to the portraits of the respective actions there, and from there you can typically only take adjacent actions from there with that agent. Yes, you can always jump through that, but usually that's a timing thing. So there is a good reason to go here, unless again you want to say, no, I want to have 2 agents here at the end of the round because next I want to go here and there, for example. So everything has a reason, but I think in this case, not knowing the game state too much, and this can really change quite dramatically from round to round, I think we want to place it here. It's also an action we are triggering right away, and as we are still in round 1, we only can buy ships that are from round 1. This is depicted by the star here. We can also buy older stuff, so in round 2 we can still buy round 1 stuff, and there is an aging mechanic at the start of the very last round of the game. All your galleons, your starting galleons, will basically rust. Yeah, if you allow me this reference to 18xx lingo. So these are the 2 ships that I have available. I don't have any more galleons anyway, so I have to pick one of those if I'm buying a ship. They all cost 1, and that's also equaling the round we are in. So level 2 ships will cost 2 and so on. These ships have, apart from their value and from the period, two main, I would say, attributes. We have the loading capacity and we have the speed. So we could go for a slow Indiaman, which can definitely transport more stuff, or we can go for a faster ship, which gives you a good advantage in respect to loading and or selling later on. Again, I'm not really thinking this through too much. I want to really show you how different this game can be played. So I think in this case, blue is going to spend $1. We are getting 4 back. And we will go for the faster schooner. So this will still be available for the next round. Not very likely that we're going for it for the next round, but I think we will go for the schooner here, which we place into our newly built harbor here. We can pretty much discard existing ships out there, even if ships that are left over at the sea region. That can happen as of round 2, for example. We can also ditch them there, but again, you can only have as many ships wherever they are as you have port capacities available. For now, that's totally legal for the blue player, but that's also already the end of their action. I think red is playing a little bit of a different game. They will also go for a ship. I think that much is clear. They will also have to spend $1. We know all those level 1 ships or tier 1 ships cost us $1. As we don't have a third harbor, we have to replace a ship, and I think red is going for the Indiaman instead. So we are basically ditching this. And it's out of the game. You can never get it back. But at least we have strengthened our fleet. And I think early game, it's not that big of a deal if you have 2 or 3 ships. Again, it depends a little bit on the two markets, so the production market and the demand market. And right now, I don't know if we really see a whole lot of buying stuff. So I think having these 2 ships out for the red player should be sufficient. Then it's yellow's second action, and I think they will go to the trader. And this is a very simple one. For every white cube we are selling, we get 1 extra buck during phase E. Pretty much the last phase of the round. Of course, this gives some information away to the other players, because not only do they know that yellow doesn't pay to sail to China, which usually costs you $2 for each ship you are sending there, so we are already saving some money there. No, they also know that they are basically getting 1 extra buck for silk they are selling. So yeah, that's definitely some information they are being given here. Then it's back to blue for their last agent of the turn. And I think blue is doing something very similar. I'm not feeling like going for the investor here or the governor down there, because I think I will let the other players decide that a little bit. No, I think we are going to the trader as well. Keep in mind, in theory, it's the same or similar action, but it's not in the same action row. So blue doesn't have to pay anything to yellow. If blue would have gone here, for example, because they also wanted some piece of the cake in respect to the extra selling price for silk, now they would have to pay yellow $1 in order to place it there. But again, this is a different action, so they don't owe anything. For red, it's very, very simple. They will totally go in here, because not only will they get now 1 extra buck for selling spices, no, because of the trading post they have built here in trade zone 3, every cube they are buying here will be reduced by $1 as well. And yes, there is spices there. Awesome. But that's the end. No, of course, the yellow player still has to place their last meeple. And I guess now it's time to really send someone to the governor here to really mess with the market. Again, I want to show you as much as possible, as I don't really know how many rounds I will walk you through today. But again, these were all of the actions for the agent step. So now we are moving into the stock exchange. The first thing that will happen there is to check if someone went to the captain. No one did, which means the turn order doesn't change. This could be a problem for the yellow player. Maybe they should have gone there, but I think they're feeling safe enough for now. Then we are actually buying some stock. Blue is still the starting player, so they get the first opportunity to buy some stock. You get one opportunity to buy stock, then it's the red player, then it's the yellow player, then it goes back to blue. You can pass. Only if everyone passes, this will then end the stock round. And now there is something which is very, very important, which is something when I teach this to new players, is that you can typically sell stocks anytime when you take an action. Basically, there are two exceptions to the rule. First one is you can't sell in the stock exchange phase right now. You can only buy stuff. And then there is another second, let's say, minor exception to this rule. At the during the very last round of the game, you can only sell your stocks in this very first phase of the game. As of here, you are no longer allowed to sell the stock. Apart from that, again, whenever you are taking an action, before or after that action, you can sell as many stocks as you want. Yes, you cannot, or you can never sell your presidency shares, but apart from that, you're totally free. A lot of players will forget that. They are really concerned, oh, I'm running out of money, I cannot afford anything. They're really forgetting that you can sell stock. And again, this is a very, very crucial mechanic of this game. So again, blue is first, and right now the stock price is 4 for all of the stocks. So right now it doesn't really matter too much what they're going into. There are two considerations. So do you want to go for your own stock, which can be problematic early game, or do you want to, I don't know, help the other players? Usually you want to buy foreign stocks early game. Blue sees that, yeah, yellow is going heavy for silk, so they have a slight idea that yellow could increase in price. So I think, yes, they will spend $4 to buy a yellow stock. So, which is basically going into their portfolio, and this means immediately the stock price goes up one step. It's still at 4 for another step here, but at least we are coming closer to the 5, then it's another 5, and as of 6 it's basically 1 for 1. It can go all the way up to 21, by the way. Then it's red, and I think, yeah, red, why not? I mean, they can also go for the same stock. It's still at 4, and I think we want to do that. So they're also spending 4, so we're getting 1 back here. I don't need to show you the exchange rate. So they're also going for yellow. Again, what's gone is gone, of course, and this means it's going 1 up more. So now there could be a thing for the yellow player to also buy their stock, because they know with the next purchase their stock would be worth 5, which would be great. The problem is blue would have the first opportunity to sell the stock, because again, we cannot sell in the stock round. We can only sell as of, let's say, the navigation step, and blue will be the starting player for this phase. So if yellow now drives the price up to 5, then blue would totally sell it and already made some profit out of this. So that's really a good reason not to go for their own stock. So I think in this case they will simply invest into blue, right? Yeah, let's go for it. So doing this, they will take Compagnie Française des Indes Orientales. Yeah, pretty sure I have butchered this. Now we are moving back to blue, and they still have money. I think this is the piece which the red player didn't really think through. So blue is definitely going to spend 4 more bucks for that. So they're now down to 1. So in theory, they're not able to sell or to buy anything. But again, we can fix that later on. So we are taking another yellow one. And again, this means that the price is now at 5. Wow, that's tough. So this goes to the blue player. The problem now is red is out of money. They're down to 3, so they cannot afford another stock. So they are passing, basically. Again, in this phase, we cannot sell stuff. Yellow is at 8, so in theory, they can still go for 2 more stocks. So that's not terrible. So they alone could actually bring the price of blue up to 5 and could make 3 profit, which is huge early game, which is really, really huge. And again, also blue cannot sell anything anymore. They're down to 1 buck, so we can basically stick with them. So yes, they will definitely basically spend all 8 monies here to buy 2 more blue. Oh yeah, that's really amazing actually. So this goes up 1 and 2. So there's also at 5. And they are also the only player who can sell blue stocks. Blue do have 2 blue stocks, but these are the presidential shares which you are never allowed to sell. So everyone is out of cash, which means we have to end the stock exchange phase, which means we are moving into the navigation phase of the game. The first thing that will happen is we are messing with the demand and or the production, or end the production. Depending if players went to the governor or the investor to the second space, or first space that is, it's either assigned randomly the demand and or production, or a player gets to choose. In this case, yellow went to the governor space, which means they get to pick the card that is further influencing the production there. So let's quickly do that. And for each of the periods, or not really for each of the periods, but for certain periods, there is a certain pile of cards. So this pile is, for example, for periods 1 and 2. This is for 3 and 4, and then there is 1 stack for the 5. There is a good overview at the back of the rulebook, which I can't find right now. Is basically this one here. This tells you all the possibilities that are on these cards. They are not necessarily extremely different. So maybe let's simply show you some of those cards here. But again, this is telling you how many additional cubes are being produced of each of those goods. This down here is only valid for a 4-player game, so which means, for example, on this card, this will produce in a 3-player game 1 tea, 3 spices, and 2 coffee, no silk. This is 2, 2, 1 and 1. In a 4-player game, this would be 3, 2, 1 and 1. I think I will do this hidden, so you have at least some sort of surprise. So I will pick one of those cards. Again, if no one would have gone there, we would have shuffled those cards and we would have placed it there randomly. But in this case, again, the yellow player gets to choose. So here is the card. Right now, the other players do not know what the final production will be in the East Indies. Again, those dice, they will add up to those cubes that are printed here. So again, the players do have some sort of information. They do know that 4 spices are being produced here, for example, and they do know that 2 coffee will be produced, but they don't know what else is coming from that card. For Europe, there's a very similar mechanic in place. There's also a deck of cards for all of the periods. Again, it's 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1, 4, 5. But as no one did go to the investor, we will assign a random card to the demand up there. Again, this will also add to the cubes that are being printed here, but right now no one knows. So it could be that, I don't know, we are removing 2 extra spices or 3 extra spices from here. Or I think this can even go up to 4, for example. But right now it's totally random, and maybe someone should have gone there. But again, early game, you may have other things to do. As of the second round, I think it's very, very likely that someone will go there sooner or later. Officially, we are still in phase C of the current game round. So we did this, and now we are sending our ships to the different zones in the East Indies. Again, we start by following the initiative order, which is still blue. So all the players will take their ships into their hand. In theory, you can shuffle them if you want. Usually you know what ships the other players have, and I think it's totally legal to ask around, hey, what's your fastest ship, and so on. But once they have it in their hand, they're basically face down. And then again, following the initiative order, the players will send one of their ships each to those regions, and then it goes around the table until we are running out of ships. And usually there is not a reason to not send all your ships out, because yes, in China and Indonesia it costs you some dollars to send your ships to, but for India you can basically put them there for free if you want to keep them there for another round, for example. And I think I will explain that you also have to pay something to the local harbor then. But usually you can also send them back empty if you so desire. It's not really mentioned in the rules, but that's how we played it, that you don't have to load your ship. You can always send them home empty. So now I really have to do some thinking, and yeah, this is tough actually, playing this game for 3 players. This is already pretty brutal playing this alone, but thinking this through for 3 players, yeah, that's very, very mean. Okay, I think blue will send their first ship here to Batavia, Indonesia. In order to do so, they have to spend, $1, because that's for each ship you have to spend this dollar, and they didn't go to the captain, so it's not free for the blue player. Before we are handing it off to the red player, and this is really something which you have to remember, they definitely want to sell some stocks, because otherwise they will miss out on the opportunity. So I think in this case they will sell both of their yellow stocks. Right now the cost is at 5, and you get the money before you're actually driving down the market price. It will drop by 1 for each stock that is being sold, but you still get the full amount. So in this case they simply get $10 out of this, so they also have earned $2 or made profit of $2, which again is not a bad thing. So they are moving down a yellow 1 and 2, because again they have sold 2 yellow stocks. And that's basically the end of this first shipping action. Over to red. For them it's quite simple. They will send this ship here to India, and they have no real reason now to sell stocks, because again the price can't drop below 4, so they can still wait for later on. This was really the perfect opportunity for the blue player to gain some cash. Yeah. And then it's yellow, and no surprise, they're sending their first ship to China. They don't have to spend the $2, because again they have sent one of their agents to the second space of the captain. The 0 means you're not paying the transport cost. Awesome. And you also see that this is related to phase C of the game, which we are still in right now. Then it's back to blue in respect to ship placement, and I think they are sending another of their ships here to Indonesia, to region 2. Again they have to spend $1 for that. Then it's red again, and they will also send their second ship here to the India region. Back to yellow. For them it's also quite simple. They will simply send their second ship in here. Again, they don't have to pay for that. This discount counts for all of your ships doing that phase here. And then blue. Yeah, blue indeed has still 1 ship left. And how mean do they feel? It may not be ideal, but I think in order to show you stuff again, I will send this ship over here to this sea region. Again, they don't have to spend any money here, but right now they would be last, because again we will then load those ships basically from the first ship to go there, unless another player has sent a faster ship to that region. In this case the faster ship will take the priority here. So I think those were all the ships. Yes, we can basically go to the loading phase of the game. The first thing that will happen now is that we will reveal the card that the yellow player has placed there. So now all the other players will see what they have done. So in this case it means we are adding 2 green cubes. Again, this second one is only for a 4-player game. We will add 6 of those spices, which I think it wasn't ideal. We are adding 3 in total for coffee, and we are adding 3 more silk, which is pretty good for the yellow player. So let's quickly do that. Which now means we have a very good market for spices, and we also have a very good market for silk. Not so much for tea, obviously. And now we actually do start to load. We will start with region 1, and right now only the yellow player is in here. So we can basically load those ships in any order we see fit. And I think in this case it's very, very obvious. They are going for silk. Both galleons only have a loading capacity of 1 each, which means we are buying 2 silk in total. We are out of money, so I think now it's really the perfect time to sell. I think we only need to sell 1 stock for this transaction. That's pretty huge. And again, keep in mind, we have bought this for 4, so we did make profit out of this. It's still dropping by 1. We could now sell all 3 of those, but I don't know. Okay, that's the thing. But we are selling stuff, right? Maybe we should sell 2. Let's sell 2, because again, yeah, let's send 1 further back, so it's still going down to 4. We still sold it at 5, which means we are getting the full 5 coins for each of those stocks. But I think, yeah, thinking about the future, liquidity is definitely key, so let's totally do that. Now we do have the money to buy Basically, this costs 2, this costs 3. So we are spending 5 here. Nicely done. And we are loading those things onto our ships. And then they immediately return back home to the respective player. So you completely get your goods back. So you don't have to wait for another year. The yellow player could have chosen to remain there, but right now the situation was really perfect for them. So there was absolutely no reason to have them camp, and they still have 1 stock left. So that's really not bad. But that's basically the loading for zone 1. Then we are moving to zone 2. It's pretty much the same thing there, as only the blue player is here. And they sent their both 2 galleons in there. And what do we want? What did we want to sell there? I completely forgot. I think, looking at the market price right now, we may want to go for coffee. Yeah, why not? So we are spending 5 coins, because again the first costs 2, the second costs 3. We are loading those onto the galleons. They will both return home to the blue player's harbor. Again, it doesn't really matter where we send them to, but at least we have 2 coffee to sell later on. This was zone 2, and last but not least, we are doing a similar thing in zone 3. Now we do have different ships from different players, so we really need to use our loading, little loading helper here. So what will happen now is we will take them from top down to the bottom and we'll place them here. So here we have, ooh, it's a level 3 ship. How about that? Then we will add this one here. It's a level 1 ship, or a speed 1 ship, I should say. This is an Indiaman, which is also a speed 1 ship accordingly. Again, normally we would now start loading from top down to bottom. This was the first ship that the red player has sent here. It was also the first ship ever to sail to India. The problem is blue sent their fastest ship down there, the schooner, which means we are starting to load from here. So always from left to right and then from bottom to top down. In this case, red will get 3 cubes if they want to, but unfortunately blue will be first there. And again, looking at the prices, I think it's really a no-brainer. They will spend 1 coin to buy 1 spice here. Again, it didn't really mess the red player up too much, but still, normally they could have taken basically this for 0, 2 cubes for 0 actually, and now blue has taken one of the very, very cheap ones away from them. And again, we are sending the blue ship back home to the blue player's port. Then it's red. Do they want to load 3? I think they do, right? I think they do. Again, they get a discount for each cube they're buying here in this region. Doesn't matter if it's tea or spices. So I think this is 0, this costs them 1, this costs them 1. So in total for 2 doubloons, so they don't even have to sell their stock, which is really good, quite honestly. They will get all these 3 cubes here. Again, the Indiaman can take 2, the galleon can only take 1, and so they're sailing back home. The players could have decided to keep a ship here in India, for example, because maybe the price was too expensive, maybe they were too late and the price was down to 5 or so. In this case, red could have said, no, I will leave my galleon here or my Indiaman here for the next round, which would then be the benefit that all the ships that pretty much stayed for the winter, they would be first before even the fastest ship arrives. Of course, the selling point still is then decided depending on the speed, but at least the purchasing is something where you get first dibs on the goods. But for now, I think everyone was quite happy here, and this ends the loading phase. So up next is the trading phase. Again, the first thing that will happen is we will flip the card. So we finally see what demand we are facing in Europe. So let's flip that over. Okay, so we are removing 3 tea in cube. We are only removing 1. Oh, that's really bad for the red player, but this was totally random. We are removing 4 brown and 3 silk. Wow, everyone but red is making massive amount of dollars, I think. So wow, the price for silk really exploded. It went down from 6 to 8. pretty great. Similarly for coffee, so it's now at 7. Spices, it's still not bad, it's 5. The problem is there are only really 3 places here. And red doesn't have a storage capacity. Oh, that's really a very mean one. So blue did play it very, very well here, quite honestly. So yeah, now we are starting to unload. We would typically start with goods that are stored on the player's harbors. This can't happen during the very first round of the game. This might happen at whatever as of round 2, but right now we can basically jump over this. And now again, going in a descending fashion for the speed, players will now be able to sell their ships. So what you typically do, you ask around, okay, who has speed 4 ships, because these are the fastest ships. Right now that's not the case. Then you would ask, okay, who has level or speed 3 ships? In this case, it's only the red player. And I think for sure they're the blue player, and for sure they're going to unload this one here. If you would have, let's say, multiple level 3 ships, you would then start, or if different players would have the tier 3 ship or a speed 3 ship, you would then again go by the initiative order, but you're also only ever selling or unloading 1 ship at a time. So then whatever blue would go for his first speed 3 ships, then if red would have a speed 3 ship, they would then sell one and so on. So you're not really selling all your speed 3 ships, because otherwise this would really be very, very brutal. But in this case, let's totally sell this spice. It goes back to the market. We are not gaining any extra money there, no. So blue will simply collect 5 coins for that. They bought this piece of spice for 1 and sold it for 5. So that's definitely not bad. We are not putting the money into the normal coffers of the player covers. We will place it here on the right side. At the end of this round, everything that is still here will move down, but this is pretty much telling us how successful each of the companies were during that round, and will then influence the stock accordingly. Okay, those were all the level speed 3 ships. No one has speed 3 ships. Now we are moving over to the speed 1 ships. In this case, everyone has speed 1 ships. Blue is first on the initiative, so they might as well, because no one else has coffee, so they can in theory sell them both if they so desire, and I think they do. So 1 coffee goes in here for 7, 1 goes in here for 6. So that's 13 in total. But because they have placed one of the agents to the trader for coffee, they get $1 per cube each, which means they are earning $15 in total out of this transaction, bringing them to an income of 20, which can be good and bad. It's definitely not so bad news for the yellow player. I will show you this in a second, but these were basically all the level 1 ships of the blue player. Again, you know, typically you would sell one speed 1 ship, then the next player, but in this case they all have different goods out there, and this is not unusual during the very first round of the game, at least in the 3-player game. In a 4-player game you would already see a lot more of, I think, let's call it interaction in respect or mix up of different goods, but in this case everyone went there. I mean, we already saw some taking away from the blue player here, because this will definitely be a problem. Up next would be the red player. They do have 3 orange cubes. They don't have any storage capacity whatsoever, which is really, really a bummer. So they have to sell it no matter what. The first 2 are okay. I mean, they got these 2, I think 1 for 0, 1 for 1. So they're still making a profit. So that's 8. The last one, unfortunately, has to basically be sold for 1. So that's 8 plus 1, it's 9. But of course, they also sent an agent to the trader here for spices. So in total, they are getting 3 more bucks, bringing them up to 12, which is not nothing, which is at least quite okay, I think. Bringing them to 12 for the income, and I think that's it. There's nothing more. In theory, again, they could sell their stock right now, but there is no reason to do that at this point in time. Then we are selling the goods from the yellow ships. Again, you would do that player after player, but everyone has their own set of goods in this case, so we might as well do it just like this. They're totally selling the 2 silk. First one for 8, second one for 7. That's 15, plus the 2 they're getting from the trader. That's $17. Really not bad, especially as they only sold 2. They still have a stock left. They still have 5 money left. So yellow is doing exceptionally well. Okay, this was basically the selling step of the game. To some extent, or at least the active part of that step. Up next, we are checking which of the companies did the best. And we already did that, so we know that blue has 20, yellow has 17, and red has 12, which means the blue stock is increasing by 2, yellow by 1, and red stays where it is. Wow, which again, I guess it's good news for both the red and the yellow player. So again, blue is 1, 2, again at 5. So, and we still have some stocks. Yellow is only increasing by 1 and red stays where it is. Unfortunately, yellow is not quite at 5 just yet, but sooner or later we will get there. But it's not just over yet, because up next, for each of the companies, we compare the, let's say, last or initial year to the current year in respect to revenue. So we all started at 0, and we know that blue has made 20 bucks in respect to revenue in this case, which means we are looking here, this is the 20 plus mark. So we are making 1, 2 steps to the right, which also means blue is moving 1, 2 steps to the right. So now if yellow is selling this one here, it's bringing them 6, 2 more profits. So now he's kind of regretting already that they have sold the second share, but you don't really necessarily know what's about to happen. And again, blue was very, very lucky that the price was very cheap for the spices that he could sell it for. So I think overall it could have basically ended up differently. So I think it's not the end of the world, but they still have 1 more stock to sell for 6 money now. Awesome. Let's do the same for the red player. They have 12, so we are moving 1 step over. Still not bad. So slowly we are getting somewhere. And then we do the same for the yellow player. They're at 17. You're always rounding down to the next lowest 10. In this case, that's 10. It's still 1 more step to the right, which means the stock price for yellow did increase to 5. So that's definitely good news for the red player. And by the way, next year you do the exact same thing. So as of now, we are basically moving this to the normal coffers here. And unlike a 18xx game, there is no coffers for the company versus your own coffers or so. This is really just here to show you or basically give you some, or you can help to remember who earned the most amount of money for this whole piece here. But again, next year we are doing the same check again. So let's say next year blue is only making $19, which means it would move back 1 step. So in doing this step of phase E of the selling step, they would lose 1 market price or 1 step to the left on the stock exchange rate. This is really such a clever mechanics, because every now and then you have to make a decision. Do I really want to jump to 14? Is it very likely that I will have a similarly good round next round, or should I try to basically stay in this range? Because also maybe my opponents have an awful lot of stocks from my company, so every stock bump I give my company, I'm maybe helping the other players more than I help myself. Maybe I only have my 2 presidency shares at the end of the game and all my stocks are shared between the other players. So I'm really working for them, which is really, really a vital part. And the last game I really had an amazing company. I think my price was at 18 or so. And I think I only had 3 stocks in the end. And all my stocks were basically spread to the other players, and they won. They really, because of the high prices, I think it was very close, but still it was not enough for me to win, because I had then, I think, only stocks from a very, very weak company, which didn't get me a whole lot of money. This is really such an interesting part about this game, but something that you really have to learn and experience by playing it. So some of the intricacies you will typically not notice during your very first playthrough here. We are still not done. Up next, and wow, I see that now. Interesting, because up next we are checking for possible dividends. Red and yellow stocks are still in this first bracket here, which says no dividends. Blue, on the other hand, so is in the one bracket here, which means blue player has to pay $1 to each player who owns a stock, for each stock they own. In this case, it's only the yellow player who has a stock, but this is still good enough. So blue, out of their own coffers, has to pay $1 to the yellow player. Now that was really, really good, and all the more reason now to regret that they have sold their second share, because otherwise blue had to give them 2 money. Again, may not sound like much, but again, it's basically a 4-point swing in the end. Money is victory points in the end. Awesome. Okay, that's basically that. And the very last thing that you do, or kind of the very last thing, it's not really necessarily last thing. Normally do that after you have determined your income of the companies. You adjust the initiative order. So we do know that red was the worst, which means they will get the initiative. A very, very cool catch-up mechanic. I always love clever catch-up mechanics in a game. Yellow was second and blue was the best, which means they go into the next round last. So for them, all the more reason maybe to visit the captain in order to go back to the top of the initiative for the round. But this will then cost them $2, because again, you pay to the captain as much money as the period you are in right now. We will move into the second period, which means $2 need to go to the bank. And now I think the very, very, very last thing that will happen in a round is that all of those meeples will move to the portraits up here. So from there, we will then start the next round. So we will move back to the agent step. This will move down to, we are now in period 2 of the game. We will start with the red player. And again, the red agents can only go to adjacent actions. So for example, this meeple here could go to the trader and any action of the trader, or could stay at the ship owner, so they could go for another ship, for example, or they could send this fella down here to the governor. If for whatever reason they want to send this meeple here to the captain or to the investor, that's not easily possible. They can still do that, but they have to go to this center space of the board first. This was their placement action, which means now would be the yellow player, so they could miss out on a cheap opportunity to get there. Also a relatively clever mechanic in here. But I think for today I will end my walkthrough here. I think you have seen most of the game. Yes, you haven't seen the parking. I have explained you the parking. Yes, you haven't seen basically selling from a warehouse, but also I explained you this. Maybe one thing to clarify, these cards are really removed from the game, so another player to go there couldn't choose the very same card again, but there are still, I think, 4 or 5 more cards left in the stack. As of period 3, we are using a different deck anyway. First thing that will happen now, we would roll those dice again. Oh, still not a great roll in respect to demand. There is still no demand for spice, which is really, really bad. Yeah, we have more coffee, tea, silk, and spices. If you are really interested, I may want to consider to do 1 or 2 more periods in an extended walkthrough or so. I will really let you decide if you want to see more or if you think it's sufficient. It's really tough to play this on your own, playing for 3 players. When you start planning for player 3, you already have forgotten what you wanted to do with player 1, which is not even untypical if you're playing for your own, at least when you are me. But really, it's a very, very challenging game in respect to consideration. It's a lot about timing. It's a lot about buying and selling stock at the right time. You already have seen that yellow should have stuck to the blue stock here. They would have made at least 2 more bucks out of this, which again may not sound like a lot, but money can be incredibly tight throughout the game every now and then. So having these $2 extra could send you a ship to China here, for example, or could buy you another level 2 ship, or whatever, give you initiative. So again, having the $2 extra is definitely not bad. Before I forget, another huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members out there. You guys are truly amazing. Cannot tell you how much I appreciate all your support. And also, I'm recording this on the 31st of December, so we are about to move into the new year. And I don't really know when I will be able to edit it and when I will be able to upload it. Maybe today, not quite sure. Still have to do some preparations. So either way, Happy New Year, good start into 2023. And yeah, there are definitely a lot more games waiting on the shelf to be explored. But again, let me know, send in your comments, your requests, your thumbs, and I will consider a second video. I will definitely not play it to the end, that much is clear. But maybe, again, if you want to see a little bit more of the dynamics, happy to go into an extended walkthrough, maybe playing 1 or 2 more rounds of this game. And with that being said, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.